Fall in, Polk County. This is today's veteran. Hello and welcome, and on behalf of everyone at the Polk County Office of Veteran Services, thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Kate West, and on this installment of Today's Veteran, we chat with Jesse Coulter, team leader of the Lakeland VA Vet Center, about PTSD and other issues facing our veterans. During our War Story segment, we will hear from American Legion member Mac Tobias about his military experience. Now stand by for your SITREP Polk County and prepare to copy. Preparations are underway for the VA's annual homeless count, which will take place on the evening of 29 January. This point-in-time survey is planned, coordinated, and carried out locally. For more information on the count, contact Anthony Whipple-Leatherwood, Chairman of Capacity Building for the Homeless Coalition of Polk County. Since March, the backlog of disability and compensation claims has been reduced by 36%. The success is attributed to the combined impact of transformation initiatives and increased employee productivity. The transformation plan includes retraining and reorganizing the VA workforce, streamlining business processes, and building and implementing new technology solutions. With each transformation milestone, VBA is successfully moving away from a manual process to improve benefits delivery through paperless claims processing. The mandatory overtime for VBA claims processors that helped bring down the backlog in 2013 will continue for much of the new year. The Veterans Benefits Management System, or VBMS, was deployed to all 56 regional VA offices across the country, 6 months ahead of schedule. Currently, about 75% of the claims inventory is in digital form for electronic processing in VBMS, a percentage that is growing daily.
Hi, and welcome to our show today. When the military service members return home, they have a long row to hoe, and helping them in transition and in readjustment, the VA has set up centers called the Vet Centers, and we're happy today to be here with Jesse Coulter, who is the team leader of the VA Vet Center in Lakeland. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you very much.
Jesse, let's get right to it, and tell us first of all about yourself and how you got to where you are with your background, your military service, and your VA service.
Yes, I joined the Marine Corps in 1971. Waited a year out of school to join the Marine Corps. Of course, the Vietnam War was on. I had two brothers that were in service at the time. One was in Vietnam at the time. Then I spent my tour in the Marine Corps on the happy island of Okinawa and had lots of fun there, and did not go to Vietnam. But when I come home, both my brothers were out of service, and my oldest brother was having quite a very, very hard time readjusting from coming home from Vietnam. And those are very, very tremendous days and hard days for my mom, dad, and for the family. There was 10 of us kids. And it was very, very hard to see him in the condition that he was in. And there was really, the help was very limited back in those days. And of course, he had extreme problems with coming home from Vietnam. So the VA did the best that they could at that time. But again, they were very, very difficult days. And when I returned in early '73, to see him in the mess that he was. Of course, I'm trying to help out as a middle child, a rescuer. I'm trying to help out as much as I can, but life went on. Life went on, And of course, he went to divorces and three divorces and many, many different jobs and a lot of problems, many problems. But I pursued my education. I was a poor boy, and I took advantage of that GI Bill, and I went and worked during the day and went to school at night. And I went to to get a bachelor's degree in liberal arts at Governor State University, which is south side of Chicago. And there I fell into a weekend class called transactional analysis, and this is an old therapeutic process that was popular back in the 60s and the 70s. And I fell in love with it. I said, man, this is something I really need to do with my life. So I pursued counseling and psychology, and picked up a bachelor's degree and just moved right on into the master's program. And in the master's program, we had to have real counseling clients. And so one of the sites that was offered to me was the Vet Center, which was in Chicago Heights. And I went to the Vet Center, and of course, found out that I was a veteran. They got me in the database real quick and said, hey, come on to work. We got plenty of work for you to do. And of course they did. I came down here in 2011, March 2011, to open up the Vet Center in Polk County. And so I was given the job to locate a space and start hiring staff and start getting the message out that, hey, we have a vet center here in Polk County. And we've established there in Lakeland at 1370 Ariana Street.
Okay.
And so there was a real need to understand the population of the Vietnam vets that were struggling so much, not only with the trauma of Vietnam itself, but the trauma of coming home and the society changes that they had to face at that time. And those are ugly, ugly times in our society, and thank God a lot of those things are gone. Some of them are still around for sure, but we've helped in the Vet Center program. We've helped made a great big change with helping veterans readjust. To continue on, in 1990, the Persian Gulf War, in 1991, the Persian Gulf come on, and our eligibility at that time was only for Vietnam-era veterans. However, we don't turn away any veterans, so we will help all veterans much as we can. But then Congress passed legislation to also allow other combat veterans into the Vet Center program for counseling. So our eligibility is combat veterans is what our eligibility is. All combat veterans who's been deployed in some combat zone. Also, our eligibility is also, since Tailhook, the incident that happened with Tailhook, as you may remember, it was discovered that there was a lot of, most like a military sexual trauma that went on and harassment that went on with men and women in the service. And so we were mandated to provide counseling for those individuals as well. So that's the second part of our eligibility, is combat veterans, military sexual trauma for all veterans. And then our third eligibility is now providing bereavement counseling to families who have lost a loved one in this present conflict since 2001. So we're doing a lot of good work with that as well.
Okay. So at the Vet Center, and you have evolved over the years to where you are now. How would somebody go about getting in your program, or what do they have to do to prove they're a combat veteran, and how would they start the process? Okay,
it's a good question. It's a good question. And a DD-214 is the real evidence of combat service, combat zone service. However, I met quite a few veterans over the years, mostly out of the Vietnam era, who could not prove Vietnam status, and so with their DD-214. Because there was problems and errors on them, so we were able to get the military records and definitely show that they definitely were in country. So basically, that's the only requirement we really need is a DD-214 or military discharge. Something that's come down the pike, we're also eligible, mandated, to also see veterans with other than honorable discharges. We're also to help them with post-traumatic stress disorder counseling. Within reason, to help these individuals also with the possibility of getting their DD-214 upgraded to a general, so they would be available for and could benefit from VA services. Now that doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. It does happen. One of the questions that you're alluding to is how do people kind of find us, how do they contact us, how do they get a hold of us? And we have 3 missions in the Vet Center program. The first mission is outreach. What we're doing right now is letting people know that there is a Vet Center program. The government will not allow for, or against rules and regulation about paying for advertisement. So we have to do it the old-fashioned way. We have to get out here and beat feet and let people know about our program. So we're mandated to go to all the National Guard units, the reserve units, military bases that would be in our area, and let them know that there are VA services available. So we're very, very proactive in that. We do all kinds of different outreach. Last year we did all kinds of different things at Sun and Fun. We were there at the welcome home for the honor flight that just came back in on November the 12th. That was a neat thing. My staff was out there. Auburndale powwow last fall, we were able to be out there for that. So anywhere we can go and set up a booth, set up a table, and meet and greet people and just pass on this information. Another unique thing about the Vet Center program is that our program is free. There's no charge. There's no insurance policies, nothing like that's involved. It's just being a veteran and having a D-214 with a need to have someone to come in and talk to about what's going on. So that's the first part of the mission is outreach. How do we find them? How do we locate them? How do we get them in? Number 2 is our clinical work with post-traumatic stress disorder. What are we really doing with post-traumatic stress disorder? How can we help someone understand what's going on with them? And how can we get them to cope better and cope more appropriately in life with this disorder called post-traumatic stress disorder? Another unique thing about the vet centers is that a veteran does not have to have a diagnosis to come in. Just to sit down and talk and let's spin this thing around. What is going on? What's going on inside your mind? What's going on inside with the trauma or your military experience? And how did that change your life? And how can you readjust? How can you get back out here into society and still be productive and make a difference with society and with your life? The third part of our mission in the Vet Center program is to be advocates, strong advocates with benefits. Very, very strong advocates for benefits. We're part of the VA that firmly believe that benefits are well-deserved, and they have been already earned many, many years ago for many, many different people. And for the present conflict right now, they're being deserved and they are earned. And part of our job is to network with your office, of course, and with all the other veteran organizations to help that veteran find a way and to access those benefits. So that's part of our job too. We're community, most of us are community social workers, clinical social workers. Of course, we have psychologists in our program and a lot of licensed practicing nurses and counselors in our program that are able to get out here and do this great work. So those are the basic 3: outreach, clinical work with PTSD, and advocacy. And we're very, very strong in advocacy. We will let a veteran know what their benefits are and how to get those benefits.
Tell us briefly how a Vietnam veteran and their needs can differ from the Iraqi, Afghanistan, the current veteran as far as their transitional needs.
That's not a real easy answer. There's really no easy answer to that because we see a lot of the similar things that's going on with our Persian Gulf veterans that are going on with our older Vietnam veterans, which are now are retiring, which have been sitting on this thing for all these years and just coping the best that they know how. And it's difficult now that they're trying to find space in their life over all these years and wondering how they existed and got this far. And yet there's still, now these many problems are now really resurfacing, coming to the forefront and not understanding. It's interesting, we have Korean veterans that are coming in our office and World War II veterans that are coming in our office that are saying the same things. What I see with the younger veterans, and a lot of our Iraqi veterans are older guys too, as you well know, but a lot of them are young people. They're still soldiers. They still have that program running where they're still a soldier, and they're still a Marine, they're still an airman, they're still a sailor. They're still on the job, And that military mindset program is still running. And about what I talked about a while ago about avoidance is still very much a part of their life. And so there's a big difference right there. Even though the older guys are still soldiers, the old Marines are still Marines. They're still, and the sailors are still sailors. They're still out there going. But these young guys and girls, my goodness, the girls that suffer with these things, which is difficult for me personally to deal with them. But we will deal with them, and we do take care of them the best we know how. But still, that program is still so fresh in their mind. Those dreams are coming on a regular basis. Those thoughts are still there on a regular basis, so it's very, very difficult. Right now I'm interviewing for a GWAT outreach position, someone to go out into the community and let people know our services exist, and also the VA service exists, and your services exist to help it on them. And it's interesting because some of these people are soldiers. They are Iraq, Afghan vets, and my goodness, the answers they give you is just straight, right on military mindset. So it's very, very difficult for them. And just like back in the 60s and the 70s, it was and 80s, and then the 90s with the Persian Gulf War, it's so very, very difficult to get back out here with all this stuff just running so fresh in their minds. So that's one of the best answers that I can give you for that. The problems, the associations of the problems are the same. Flashbacks, the bad nightmares, the intrusive thoughts, the overwhelming feelings of guilt, overwhelming feelings of panic, feelings of I just want to be left alone. I just want to isolate, and wives and families can't understand why their father can't go out and play ball with them. And that 6 or 7 year old kid is struggling to try to get their daddy to engage, and daddy's still got this mindset, having major problems with that. So that's all counseling stuff that we got to work on and help somebody to take that risk to get back out there and get on that ball field with your kid. Go to your wife, go shopping with your wife, all those kinds of things to really encourage them to get back out there into society the best that we can.
So it's a hard job.
It's a wonderful job. It's a wonderful job. It's difficult, but somehow we got to find creative ways to get in there. And it's an honor and privilege to do this work, and to sit amongst the warriors of our country, and to hear their heartbeat, and to help to assist them to get back out in this world where they are deserving of everything that our great country has for them.
Well, Jesse, we're about to run out of time. I would like for you to tell the audience, just maybe naming your staff, because I know they're very dedicated people, and just tell us who's actually in the Vet Center.
All right, thank you. There are 300 vet centers across the nation, to include Guam and also the Caribbean islands. So we're throughout the whole country. It's a wonderful, wonderful organization. Started back in 1979, by the way. So my office, we're very, very veteran friendly. Most of the office, 60% of our staff are veterans. And in my staff, I have Sherry Alep, who is the office manager. She's Air Force. We pick on her quite a bit, of course, because we're all jealous, because we didn't go in the Air Force. And she does a wonderful job with running the front desk and greeting people and helping people with so many claims and so many benefits issues. Then we have William Nieves, who's my combat vet on staff. Panama, also speaks fluent Spanish, so he has a lot of our Hispanic people coming in and doing wonderful work with them. I have Daenerys Crown, who is also a Spanish speaking. She is our licensed and marriage family therapist. She's not a veteran, but does wonderful with the veterans, has some very, very difficult cases. And then we have Valerie Lepardo, who's also not a veteran, but I would have to say she has the most difficult PTSD case that we have in the office, and is doing a very, very wonderful job with them. I stole her from a vet center out of Scranton, Pennsylvania, where I know the team leader up there. So I have a very competent staff. They're younger than I am, and they're going to take my place when I retire someday. So that was the goal there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jesse, thanks for coming in today. And if you need help, if you're a veteran, call the Vet Center. Call our office, and we'll direct you there also. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I was in the Army. I was drafted. I was in high school I remember that the first number pulled for the draft, I think, was 518 or 512, and mine was way up there, but they took me. I was in high school and turned 18, and they gave me a deferment till I graduated. So I graduated in June, went to a commencement party, stayed up all night, went to the train station the next morning, caught the train, left and went to Camp Atterbury, Indiana to get in. Transferred from there to Little Rock, Arkansas to a Camp Joseph T. Robinson. Our basic training started and they were training us for jungle warfare. But then the war ended in August. And so they transferred and it started getting a little easier. And the cadre there had us busy all the time. They had a large, I couldn't figure out how they found such a flat space in the Ozarks. But the drill field was big and they had rocks at one end, rocks at the other, and you drilled. But our thing was to pick rocks up from one end and carry them to the other end. When we got done, we picked them up and took them back, you know. So it was a training. I finished my basic training and went through Fort Dix. The Merchant Marine at that time, since the war was over, they weren't going to sail during the Christmas holidays, so I spent 3 weeks in Fort Dix, and they gave us passes. We'd go to New York and so forth, so it was easy service there. Got on a Liberty ship, went across the Atlantic, and we pulled into Le Havre, France. There we caught trains to go, and the trains were the 40 and 8. They were wooden box cars, wooden floors. They had a wood stove at one end. We were carrying our backpacks and everything, and there was no beds. You just slept on the floor. And we stopped at cigarette stops on the way. They had Chesterfield, Lucky Strike, Camel, and that's where the Red Cross would be there, give us coffee, donuts, and so forth. But the guys were getting so cold, it was freezing in Germany in January, so they were tearing the floorboards out of these boxcars and throwing them in the stove to keep warm. I think they had to rebuild the boxcars once they got them back, you know. And they also, the train moved so slow, they'd jump off and grab the coal and throw it back into the boxcar so they could throw that into the stove. So it was an experience just going through. We went to Nuremberg. We didn't know where we were going to end up, but it finally ended up in Bremen Enclave. The Bremen Enclave was a debarkation port at Bremerhaven. And we had the English on the west and the Russians on the east. And this enclave was like 30 miles long, 30 miles wide from Bremen to Bremerhaven. We stayed at a camp called Camp Groom, and it stayed in barracks there. Were SS barracks. They were brick, very nice. Then we put us on guard duty. I rode in a Jeep, and they stored the gas in the Autobahn in Germany. They had fence all around it, and we had to pull guard duty. And right around this gas dump, as we called it, we had 4 on, 4 off. Well, it got so tired of running that guard duty and not getting more than 4 hours sleep at a time. So they came through one time, they said, we need some volunteers. I said, well, I'll take it, whatever it is, I'll get out of here. They told me that the orderly at the officers' quarters was going on furlough and they needed somebody for 2 weeks to take his place. So I said, I'll do it. So I went there. I don't know what they ever did with the other orderly. He never showed back up again. I stayed there and worked for like 7 months in the officers' quarters, making sure the quarters were cleaned and everything, and ran a food thing for the colonel's mess. He lived close by. And this guy never came back from furlough, and they just kept me there. Well, the 78th Division, of which I was a part of, they had a roll call because they were going to deactivate the 78th and bring in the 29th. So they had a roll call, and I had to go in for roll call. I went in for roll call, and they called my name. And I said, here. And the lieutenant came up to me, and he says, where have you been? He says, we have you down as almost AWOL. I said, yeah, I've been working at your quarters. I said, I've been there. Oh, Yeah, that's right. I remember seeing you now. So, you know, it's just, that's basically all my experience in the service, and I was in Germany. So, anyway, then coming back, I picked up a little dog while I was over there, keep me company in the quarters, and I decided to bring it back. Well, coming back, a lot of these guys had dogs, and they got them as pets. So they decided to bring them home. Well, they brought them up to Bremerhaven, and they put all these dogs in crates, and they put, we had 18 men and 1 lieutenant on a merchant marine ship bringing back 88 dogs. And we had to take care of the dogs, and the dogs ate better than we did. I mean, we had sea rations, and the dogs were getting this meat, you know. But anyway, we took care of these dogs. It took us 3.5 weeks to get back because they didn't want to go through the Atlantic in the wintertime. It was too rough, so they went down by the Azores and went through the southern route. Got back to New York, got my discharge, came home, happy as a lark. That's my service. But I felt good doing it in Bremerhaven because when I arrived there, I had like 2 points. These guys over there had like 250, 280. I told a friend of mine, I says, we'll never get out of the service at this rate. And a man came through and said, who wants to enlist for a year in the regular army? I says, I will. So we knew we were going to get out in a year. So it was a good service, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed being able to be where the guys were being able to get home. I know they'd been there, they'd been a rough time, and that was my contribution to the service, to see that they did get home and everything went right. So that's my story.
In this month in history, January is the 99th birthday of the U.S. Coast Guard. This month also marks the anniversary of the end of the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. The U.S. agreed to remove all troops within 60 days of signing an agreement in late January with representatives from North Vietnam, thus ending the longest war in American history. Over 58,000 Americans have been killed, 300,000 wounded, and 2,500 declared missing. That's all we have for this edition of Today's Veteran. Next month, we will update you on news and information that pertains directly to our veteran community right here in Polk County. We will also take a look at the honor flight mission that departed from our own Lakeland Airport and transported 80 World War II veterans to Washington, D.C. and back again. Remember, for help and information regarding claims, benefits, and services available to veterans and their families, call the Veteran Service Office or log on to the Polk County website.